if they can find us.
Hello everybody, my name is Ann and I want to welcome you all here to Whitney Center's 40th Anniversary Gala, and to kick off the festivities, a tribute to Frank Sinatra with author Tom Santopietro and singer-pianist Eric Comstock. And I'm going to hand it off to Tom to tell you a little bit about the program. And after the program is finished, I think you all are aware there's food and drink and more to come, so you're welcome to join us afterwards as well. And again, thanks for coming.
First of all, hi everybody, and thank you so much for being here. This is my second time at Whitney Center, so I was really pleased to be able to come back and to pay tribute to the great Frank Sinatra and to celebrate Whitney Center's 40th anniversary. I want to explain a little bit about the unusual nature of the show, and that way you can relax as it's going on. I'm going to tell stories about Frank Sinatra, and Eric is going to sing and play the classic Sinatra songs. Fortunately, you will not listen to me sing, so right off the bat, that's a big plus. And so think of the show as a tennis match. It's going to be back and forth between the two of us. And so with that knowledge, I want to introduce my great friend Eric. He has played all the leading clubs in New York City and across the country, has recorded numerous CDs. He's won a number of the biggest cabaret awards in New York City. He is a terrific singer and pianist, so it's my great pleasure. Please welcome Eric Comstock.
Let's fly away. If you could use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me, let's fly away. Come fly with me, we'll float down to Peru. In Llama Land there's a one-man band and he'll toot his flute for you. Whatever that means, fly with me, let's float off in the blue. Once I get you up there, where the air is rarefied, we'll just glide, starry-eyed. Once I get you up there, I'll be holding you so near. You may hear angels cheer, 'cause we're together weather-wise. It's such a lovely day. Just say the word and we'll beat the bird down to Acapulco Bay. It's perfect for a flying honeymoon, they say. Come fly with me, let's fly away. Once I get you up there, where the air is rarefied, we'll just glide, starry-eyed. Once I get you up there, I'll be holding you so near. You may hear angels cheer, 'cause we're together weather-wise. It's such a lovely day. Just say the words and we'll beat the birds down to Acapulco Bay. It's perfect for a flying honeymoon, they say. Come fly with me, let's fly away.
So as you know, Frank was a nightclub devotee. And so in keeping with that, I'm wondering, can we adjust the lights a little bit? So we're gonna talk quite a bit about Frank in the 1950s, because it's really when he was at his peak as a singer and his peak as a movie star. And so, as I'm sure many of you know, in the 50s he won the Academy Award for his performance in From Here to Eternity. He was nominated for another Academy Award in The Man with the Golden Arm. And also in the 50s, he made a terrific movie called The Joker is Wild. And when they were putting together the film, they knew they wanted music in the film and they wanted a theme song. So Frank went to his favorite songwriters, Jimmy Van Heusen and Sammy Cahn, and they talked about a theme song. And so they worked a really long time on the song, and Sammy Cahn, who was the lyricist in particular, was so happy. He felt they had kind of achieved their masterpiece. So they went to Sinatra's house to play it for Frank. And they finished playing it for him, and Frank said, "Okay, that'll do." And that was all he said. And Sammy Cahn was really devastated by that because he thought they had done their best work. And Jimmy Van Heusen, the composer, who knew Frank probably better than anybody else, said to Sammy Cahn, "Don't worry about it. He loved that song. If he didn't, we would know about it." And so the instincts of all those gentlemen were right on target, because Frank recorded the song. It won the Academy Award as Best Song of the Year, and it spent more time on the charts than any other single Sinatra recording.
When somebody loves you, it's no good unless he loves you all the way. Happy to be near you when you need someone to cheer you all the way. Taller than the tallest tree is, that's how it's got to feel. And deeper than the deep blue sea is, that's how deep it goes if it's real. And when somebody needs you, it's no good unless she needs you all the way. Through the good and lean years and through all the in-between years, come what may, who knows where the road will lead us? Only a fool would say. But if you let me love you, it's for sure I'm gonna love you all the way. All the way. All the way. Stay there for the full 9 innings and pitch with all your heart. Stay there, double up your winnings. Don't let go of her if you're smart. Never just a little. Don't go dealing from the middle. You won't find another who is in your corner, brother. Come what may, who knows where the road will lead us?
I'm going to let Eric introduce the next song. You'll get a rest from me talking.
Oh, thank you, Tom. It's great to be with you all. This is a song that's a bit more esoteric. It's from the only to date Rat Pack musical. You know, the Rat Pack made several pictures together, but only one had a lot of music in it. It was called Robin and the Seven Hoods, and I love this song because it's politically, morally, and spiritually indefensible. We could go the distance and find us romance. I like your persistence, your style, and your stance. There's only one problem, the tiniest problem. I like to lead when I dance. Your eyes do the speaking, you talk with each glance. My willpower's creaking, I could take a chance. But though you're the charmer who could bend my armor, I like to lead when I dance. I like to steer the car whenever we drive and hold the door ajar when we arrive. So if it's decided that this is romance, my sweet, I'll repeat in advance. I like to lead when I dance. I like to lead when I dance. When Adam bit the fruit, as fashions were then, he got that fig leaf suit, for which, amen. So if it's decided I'm wearing the pants, well then Eve, I'd say we've got romance. However, I like to lead, I set the speed, I like to lead when I dance. Is that great?
Frank was actually making movies well before those Rat Pack days, and back in the early 1940s, before he started his feature film career, when he was with the big bands, Harry James and Tommy Dorsey, they would make 20-minute little mini films that are fascinating time capsules. And since my book was about Sinatra's film career, I looked at all of these, and they're very sweet, very naive, and sometimes hilarious, because for some reason, that besides the big band, the orchestra always featured about 20 women all wearing chiffon gowns and all playing the harp. And I could never quite figure that out. But Frank made a movie in 1944, one of these 20-minute shorts called All-Star Bond Rally, one of the patriotic flag wavers during the Second World War. And it's kind of where he gave the definitive version of this great song he sang with Harry James that still resonates in a terrific way 75 years later.
Saturday night is the loneliest night in the week, 'cause that's the night that my sweetie and I used to dance cheek to cheek. I don't mind Sunday night at all, 'cause that's the night friends come to call, and Monday to Friday go fast, and another week is past. But Saturday night is the loneliest night in the week. I sing the song that I usually sang for the memories I usually see, until I hear you at the door, until you're in my arms once once more. Saturday night is the loneliest night in the week. Monday to Friday go fast, and another week is past. But Saturday night is the loneliest night in the week. I sing the song that I sang for the memories I usually see, until I hear you at the door, until you're in my arms once more. Saturday night is the loneliest night in the week. I'll tell you a quick Sammy Cahn story. That was also a Sammy Cahn lyric with Julie Stein in this case. And Sammy Cahn was not a man of false modesty. So he had a friend over at one of the studios who said, "Sammy, we've got a picture we're doing here called 3 Coins in the Fountain. Could you write a title song for that?" Sammy replied, "I could write you a song called Ech." Might win the Academy Award, as that did. This is another early hit from the Dorsey days. Now, we think of Sinatra as a quintessential swinger on and off stage these days, but as Tom has mentioned, for the first 10 years he was a star. Almost everything he did was a ballad, and he was just a creamy, bow-tied, even, dare I say, virginal crooner. Hard to imagine now. But this is a song by a great jazz piano player called Joe Bushkin and John DeVries that showed which way the wind was blowing. I'm not the guy who cared about love, and I'm not the guy who cared about fortunes and such. Never cared much, but look at me now. I never knew the technique of kissing. I never knew the thrill I could get from your touch. Never knew much, oh, look at me now. I'm a new man, better than Casanova at his best. With a new heart, brand new start, I'm so proud I'm busting my vest. So I'm the guy who turned out a lover. Yes, I'm the guy who laughed at those blue diamond rings. One of those things, oh, look at me now. I'm a new man, better than Casanova at his best. With a new heart, brand new start, I'm so proud I'm a busting my vest. So I'm the guy who turned out a lover. Yes, I'm the guy who laughed at those blue diamond rings. One of those things, oh, look at me now. So I'm the guy who turned out a lover. Yes, I'm the guy who laughed at that song till I cried. Here comes the bride, oh, look at me now. Baby, look at me now.
In 1957, Sinatra was filming one of his great movies, Pal Joey. And at the same time he was filming, Capitol Records wanted a new recording from Frank. So his producer brought in a stack of demo records for Frank to listen to see what he would pick to record. And Sinatra, who was so impatient, said, "I'm not listening to all those records. Pick one for me." So the producer picked out a one, and they played it, and Frank kind of listened attentively, and he looked at one of his entourage and said, "What'd you think?" And the guy shook his head no. But Frank said, no, I want to listen to that again. And so he listened to it again. And after the second go around, Frank said to his entourage, I don't care what you guys think, that's the song I'm recording. And it was a song that evolved in such an interesting way because the great composer, Cy Coleman, had written the melody, and Carolyn Lee was the lyricist. And when she came up with the one-word title of the song, Cy Coleman loved the title so much that he went back and he rewrote the entire melody. And so this song not only became a hit, but it's kind of, for me, the perfect example of what adult pop music used to be. It's sexy, it's insinuating. This is just, it's a perfect marriage of the words and the music.
Those fingers in my hair, that sly come hither stare, that strips my conscience bare, it's witchcraft. And I've got no defense for it, the heat is too intense for it, what good would common sense for it do? 'Cause it's witchcraft, wicked witchcraft, and although I know it's strictly taboo, when you arouse the need in me, my heart says yes indeed in me, proceed with what you're leading me to. It's such an ancient pitch, one I wouldn't switch, there's no nicer witch than you. 'Cause it's witchcraft, wicked witchcraft, and although I know it's strictly taboo, when you arouse the need in me, my heart says yes indeed in me, proceed with what you're leading me to. It's such an ancient pitch, one I wouldn't switch, there's no nicer witch than you. It's such an ancient pitch, one I wouldn't switch, 'cause there's no nicer witch than you.
I want to back up just a little bit to sketch in the general outline of Frank Sinatra's career, which I'm sure many of you know. And so Frank started as a vocalist with the big bands. Harry James led to Tommy Dorsey. And then Frank decided to strike out on his own as a vocalist. And there were the famous engagement at the Paramount Theater in Times Square, where it wasn't just 3,000 screaming Bobby Soxers inside the theater. I found a picture of, there were 10,000 screaming girls running through Times Square. And this was, of course, it was the forerunner of Beatlemania. And so Frank was singing, and it was with Benny Goodman. And when Frank came out on stage, and the screams were earth-shattering, and Benny Goodman said, "What the hell was that?" Except he didn't say what the hell. I'm going to keep this G-rated. And what it was the introduction of sex into popular music. Because when Frank Sinatra sang All or Nothing at All, he knew what he was singing about, the girls knew what he was singing about, and he knew that the girls knew. And so Hollywood started paying attention, and they came calling, and Frank signed a contract with MGM, and that was great for his career because all those Hollywood studios, each studio did a particular kind of film best. Warner Brothers did black and white gangster movies with Jimmy Cagney, and MGM made the best musicals. And it was, so Frank landed at the right studio, and he came under the tutelage of Gene Kelly, and they remained lifelong friends. And Frank always gave Gene Kelly credit in terms of helping him learn how to act and also how to dance. And Gene Kelly had a great line. He said, "Under my tutelage, Sinatra the dancer progressed from lousy to merely adequate." But he was much more than merely adequate. If you look at those, I call them the sailor suit musicals, you know, On the Town and Take Me Out to the Ball Game. He could really dance. He was just so inherently musical. And then everything fell apart for Frank. You know, life was complicated for Frank Sinatra. He was a big recording star and a big movie star, and then he made a wisecrack about Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM, and it got back to Louis B. Mayer, who called him into the office and said, "That's it, you're done, you're gone." So that was the end of the movie contract. And the recording sales started to really go downhill because the Bobby Soxers after the war were growing up, raising families. They weren't buying records that way. And at one point he lost his voice, and as I'm sure all of you know, he met Ava Gardner. And and when I was researching the book, whatever you've read about their crazy, you know, romance and marriage, it's even bigger, it's even larger than life. They're like characters in an opera. And when he met Ava, Nelson Riddle, his great musical collaborator, had a great quote. He said, "Ava taught Frank how to sing a torch song the hard way." And so when Frank he had been dropped by Columbia, Columbia Records, that is. But he knew he had so much more within him. And as he started the climb back, he was going to record with Capitol Records. But before he went to Capitol, he had one last session with Columbia. And he recorded this song that Eric and I really wanted to include because it's not only such a great song, but it's all the influences we have in American pop culture. When you listen to this song, you hear echoes of the African American community. You can hear a cantor singing in the synagogue. You can hear Tin Pan Alley. This song is almost 100 years old, written by De Silva, Brown, and Henderson, and it is just as great today as it was all those years ago.
Oh, they say some people long ago were searching for a different tune, one that they could croon as only they can. They only had the rhythm, so they started swaying to and fro. They didn't know just what to lose. That is how the blues really began. They heard the breeze in the trees, singing weird melodies, and they played them as part of the blues. But then from the jail came the wail of a downhearted frail, and they made that the start of the blues. From a whippoorwill high on a hill, they took a new note, pushed it through a horn till it was worn into a blue note.
Birth of the Blues really pointed the way to the new Frank Sinatra with Capitol Records and in Hollywood, who, when he became the superstar we all think of today with Frank Sinatra. And in the late 50s, you know, he was not just the biggest star, but I really think he was very emblematic of our country in the post-war years, because there were two sides to Frank, both on records and in movies. So on records, he was, you know, after World War II, because America, we were the world's good guy. We were going to make the world safe for democracy. And there was Frank on record singing, "I've got the world on a string," exclamation point, songs for swinging lovers. But the flip side, because by now, of course, we all knew the bomb existed, the flip dark side was Frank singing "In the wee small hours of the morning" and "Only the lonely." And this duality was the same thing in his film career, because he had made those sailor suit musicals with Gene Kelly that are technicolor and fun and upbeat. But then the flip side is what, you know, really his film noir, like The Man with a Golden Arm, where he's playing a drug addict. So it's really the two sides of America were so exemplified by Sinatra. And in 1957, he made a film that is, I think, the quintessential Sinatra persona on film, because he's brash, he's charming, he's cocky, he's macho, but not afraid to show his feminine side. It was every aspect of Frank Sinatra on film, and that film was Pal Joey, and it co-starred the great Rita Hayworth. It was Rodgers and Hart's score, and it contained my single favorite number in any Frank Sinatra film.
She gets too hungry for dinner at 8. She loves the theater, but never comes late. She'd never bother with people she'd hate. That's why the lady is a tramp. Doesn't like crap games with barons and earls. Won't go to Hamden in ermine and pearls. Won't dish the dirts with the rest of the girls. That's why the lady is a tramp. She likes the free, fresh wind in her hair, life without care. She's broke, now that's oak. Hates California, it's cold and it's damp. Now that's why the lady is a tramp. She gets too hungry for dinner at 8. She loves the theater but never comes late. She'd never bother with people she'd hate. That's why the lady is a tramp. Doesn't like crap games with barons and earls. Won't go to Harlem in ermine and pearls. Won't dish the dirt with the rest of the girls. That's why the lady is a tramp. She likes the green grass
I've made reference to Frank's, climb up and then his fall down. And when he was making his comeback, he had no career at all, and he was married to Ava, and he had so little to do. He followed Ava to Africa, where she was filming Mogambo, and he was just hanging around the set, and because he had no jobs, and he became obsessed with From Here to Eternity, from the novel, and he was determined to play the role of Maggio in the movie. And he said, "I see Maggio in the mirror every morning when I shave." And so he wanted this role, and he would send telegrams to the director and the producer of the film, and he would sign them Maggio, and they still had no interest in him. And they wanted the actor Eli Wallach to play the role. And Eli Wallach said, "No, I'm going to do the new Tennessee Williams play on Broadway instead." And so they still didn't want Sinatra. So what he did was, he flew on his own dime from Africa to Hollywood to audition. Now remember, he had made 20 films by this point, and he was humbling himself to audition and paying his own way. And that was a huge trip in those days. Except later it was found out it wasn't on his own dime, it was on Ava's dime, because Frank was broke and owed the IRS over $100,000. So he goes to Hollywood and he films 2 scenes, and he improvised one of the scenes, and he improvised it so beautifully that they kept that scene in the final film. It wasn't in the original screenplay. And they still didn't want him. He said, "I'll do the whole movie for $8,000. And what finally got him the role was Ava, who was the much bigger star, called up Harry Cohn, who was the head of Columbia Pictures, and she said, "Listen to me. There's only one person who can play that role, and it happens to be the SOB I'm married to. Give him the role." And he got the role, he got the Academy Award, and he went right to the top of the Hollywood charts, the Hollywood scene. And in 1955 alone, he made 5 major films. That would be unheard of today. And my favorite of them was a really interesting film called Young at Heart that he made with the late, great Doris Day. And so, Doris and Frank, who liked each other a lot and had great respect for each other, were, of course, polar opposites, because, at 6 a.m., Doris had been up for 2 hours, taken her 37 dogs for a walk on the beach, and Frank was stumbling in from the corner saloon at that time. But, they had great respect for each other, and it's a really interesting film, and Frank plays a broken, kind of a down-on-his-luck songwriter. And in this film, he sings for the first time what became one of his signature songs, and he really turned this song into a complete 3-act play. You get the whole story, and that's exactly what Eric does.
I fall in love too easily. I fall in love too fast. I fall in love too terribly hard for love to ever last. My heart should be well schooled, 'cause I've been fooled in the past. But still I fall in love too easily. I fall in love too fast. It's 2:45. There's no one in the place except you and me. So set 'em up, Joe. I got a little story you ought to know. We're drinking, my friend, to the end brief episode. Make it one for my baby, one more for the road. I got the routine, drop another nickel in the machine. I'm feeling so bad, I wish you'd make the music easy and sad. Could tell you a lot, but that's not in a gentleman's code. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road. Well, you'd never know it, but buddy, I'm a kind of poet and I got a lot of things to say. And when I'm gloomy, you gotta listen to me till it's talked away. Well, that's how it goes. Joe, I know you're getting anxious to close. Thanks for the cheer. I hope you didn't mind my bending your ear. This torch that I found must be drowned, or it soon might explode. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road. That long, long road.
It was around this time that, Frank's film career was in such high gear that he wasn't just making musicals, but he was really the only rival to Marlon Brando, you know, often considered the greatest American film actor. He was Brando's only rival for the biggest dramatic roles in Hollywood. So Frank had wanted Brando's role in On the Waterfront, that Brando won the Oscar for. Brando wanted Frank's role in The Man with the Golden Arm. And they worked together only once, as many of you may know, on Guys and Dolls. And this was really not a happy set with those two incredibly talented, huge ego men together. And the great story is that, so the reason why they didn't get along at all was because their working methods were so opposite. Frank was always at his best on the first take, because he could access all that incredible emotion he had. And then he went downhill on subsequent takes and felt he got stale. And Brando was the exact opposite. He was a method actor who liked to rehearse all the time, and take after take, nothing made him happier. And this, of course, made Sinatra absolutely crazy. And so he had had enough, and one day on the set, he summoned over the director, Joseph Mankiewicz, who by this time had 4 Academy Awards. So he was a huge deal, Joseph Mankiewicz. And Sinatra called him over and he said, "Listen here, coach. Don't put me in the game until Mumbles over there is through rehearsing." Which gives you an idea of how they got along. But from Marlon Brando, definitely not a singer, to Cole Porter, one of the greatest composer-lyricists we've ever had. Frank recorded one of Cole Porter's songs repeatedly throughout his career. And when he was first starting out, and he was really unknown, he was singing in a little joint, and Cole Porter happened to come and listen to him. And Frank Sinatra was so nervous that he was singing for the great Cole Porter that he completely forgot the lyrics and he just sang the title over and over and over. And so when he and Cole Porter worked together years later, they worked together on the films High Society and on Can Can. And Frank said to him, "I don't know if you remember this night when," and Cole Porter said, "I sure remember it. It was the worst rendition I've ever heard of any one of my songs." But what's so great about the song is that it can be done up-tempo, it can be done as a ballad. It's why Frank wanted to keep examining it through his recording career. So Eric and I wanted you to have a listen.
Night and day, you are the one. Only you beneath the moon and under the sun. Whether near to me or far, it's no matter, darling, where you are, I think of you. Night and day, day and night. Why is it so that this longing for you follows wherever I go? In the roaring traffic's boom, in the silence of my lonely room, I think of you. Night and day, night and day, under the hide of me, there's an oh such a hungry yearning burning inside of me, and its torment won't be through till you let me spend my life making love to you day and night, night and day. Making love to you day and night, night and day, day and night, night and day.
As the 1950s flowed into the 1960s and then into the 70s, Sinatra changed on screen and also in the recording studio. He did something very smart in his movies, which is he changed his persona and he started playing cops and detectives, and he fit the image perfectly, because we think of those private eyes as, cynical, beat up by life, but still having some hope. And that was exactly who Frank Sinatra himself was at the time. And at the same time, in the recording studio, his voice was rougher. He didn't have those long, flowing lines he used to have, but he had lived so much, he put so much into the songs. And so for his television special, he premiered a song that is really the closest he had ever come to singing a blues song. And when he went to record it, he finished the take and he said, "Now that's a hit song." And the producer, who was a younger guy, said, "Actually, no, you need to do it again." And that is not something you said to Frank Sinatra, ever. And Sinatra shot him a look, but he did it again. And the producer had a great description of it. He said, on the second time around, instead of singing the song like a hipster, Frank bit into the lyric. And The reason why, there are three reasons why we wanted to include the song today. The first reason is because it's my favorite Frank Sinatra song of all time. The second reason is for all of us in the room who are, as I like to say, on the north side of age 29, it sums up the journey we all take. And the third reason I'm going to let Eric explain to you.
Well, I don't know if you were informed on your way in that there might be some audience participation, but this is where it happens. And I want you to know that there's a very important Hollywood agent in the room tonight. So if you apply yourselves, there could be work in this for all of us. Here's your line. That's life. That's life. Or if you prefer, that's life. That's life. Okay, an excellent first attempt. We're going to do it again though. Take two. We do second takes. We're not Frank Sinatra. That's life. That's life. That's beautiful. All right, stay by your phones. 2, 3, that's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. I know I'm gonna change my tune when I'm back on top in June. I said that's life. Yeah, funny as it may seem, some people get their kicks stomping on a dream, but I don't let it get me down, 'cause this fine old world keeps spinning around. I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king. I've been up and down and over and out, and I know one thing. Each time I find myself flat on my face, I pick myself up and get back in the race. That's life. I tell you, I can't deny it. Oft times I've thought of cutting out, but this heart ain't gonna buy it. And if I didn't think it was worth one single try, I'd jump right up on a big bird and I'd fly. I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king. I've been up and down and over and out, and I know one thing. Each time I find myself flat on my face, I pick myself up and get back in the race. That's life. Well, I can't deny it. I thought of cutting out, but maybe my heart wouldn't bite. But if there's nothing shaking this here July, I'm gonna roll myself up in a big ball and die my mind. You're beautiful. You're beautiful.
I always give a grade to the audience after their participation.
I should have warned you.
Yeah, and I have to say, a very high grade for this Connecticut crowd. I'm a Connecticut boy. I grew up in Waterbury. My schooling was in Hartford. So I was really hoping this would be a high grade, which it is. It is an A, as opposed to when we were in Dallas and the crowd got like a C minus. They were terrible. So excellent participation. As Frank kept singing and kept performing and the audience has stayed so loyal, something really interesting happened with Sinatra that I think there is no other pop cultural figure that fits this mold, which was Frank is the one figure who started out with a predominantly female audience with the Screaming Bobby Soxers and ended up with a predominantly male audience. And not that the females had deserted him, but it was a real journey that way. And it's because, you know, what Sinatra did that made him so remarkable, I like to say, he not only sang to us, but he sang about us. He was talking about that's life. And in the latter part of his career, he came across a song, and there was a melody that had been written by a French composer, and Paul Anka put an English lyric to it, and he had Sinatra in mind. And it became one of Frank's absolute theme songs, and audiences demanded that he sing it, to the point where Sinatra very humorously, when it came this time in the concert, would say to the audience, "We will now stand for the national anthem." Of course, it wasn't the national anthem. I'm sure you know what it is, but just listen to Eric's take.
End is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every byway, but much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, I saw it through without exemption. I planned each chartered course, each careful step along the byway. For much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing. But now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. Yes, it was mine.
Eric and I wanted to do one last song for you. But before we do that, at the end, please say hi in the back. Eric brought some of his CDs, which are for sale, and he's
I
happy
should
to
tell
sign
you,
them.
may I say, I'm more or less happily married. Just celebrated my 15th wedding anniversary 2 weeks ago. But if you're interested in, I'm very broad-minded. I live on the West Side. So if you want to take me home with you, we could discuss them. Don't tell my wife.
Sorry. That was definitely an ad lib. That was good. So we've tried, in the show to do Sinatra songs that you're all familiar with, but we thought we would end with a song that you don't know. And it was written by Kander and Ebb, who wrote Chicago and Cabaret. And songwriters are often most proud of their unknown songs. It's like their special children are those songs that people don't know. But we thought it would be a great way to end the show, and particularly because this song was written just about 40 years ago, and we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of this terrific facility, the Whitney Center. So it just seemed to tie everything up in a nice package. So thank you, for being such a great audience. And even though you won't know this song, we think you'll like it.
Well, this is a hip crowd. Chicago, I left my heart. New Haven, I'll just keep going through cities. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I wanna be a part of it. New York, New York. My vagabond shoes are longing to stray and step around the heart of it. New York, New York. I wanna wake up in the city that doesn't sleep, to find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. My little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. New York, I wanna wake up in a city that doesn't sleep, to find I'm king of the hill, ahead of the list, cream of the crop at the top of the heap. You can help. My little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. Good. Sign 'em up. You've all been a joy to play to. One more time, please, for Tom Santapietro.